Where should I start over?
Let's just go back to the top of the episode and just start from the beginning.
Okay, I got it.
now that
Break out
we've
the
now that we've
NyQuil.
shaken
Bring it over. Yeah,
now
yeah.
that we've shaken the dust off. Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design.
Today we're returning to our conversation with Matt Stevens, a designer and illustrator who has been successful working with clients ranging from a tequila brand
Think we could get some of that?
to graphics for shows on Apple TV Plus and Netflix.
We should definitely ask for his passwords.
But what we have in common with Matt is not only a love of design, but also pop culture.
So we're continuing our conversation with him about his personal project that grew into an actual project. Good movies as old books.
So it's time to grab a box of candy
And take your bathroom break now.
because we're welcoming Matt Stevens, our new drinking buddy, back to the bar. I want to return to a couple things you said earlier to they're unrelated, but I'll try to weave them together. So the first one was you had mentioned getting the rights to include certain pieces or certain movies. So is that a scenario where a studio or a production company says, sorry, but you can't make money from our title or our intellectual property, essentially?
Yeah, it's really a fair use kind of situation. So, Chronicle legally looked into kind of what falls under fair use and what might get us into trouble. And so anything that's like a licensed character, Marvel, DC,
Right.
I see.
Star Wars, anything in that whole Disney universe. So there are a lot of pieces from the original books that I didn't do, we couldn't include. So the process of taking this to Chronicle and releasing the book, part of that process was determining, oh, there's like 50 or 60 of these that we can't use out of the 200 that I've done. So it was going back and creating 50 to 60 more pieces so that we had
Okay.
200 plus. Anything that wasn't existing, because of my decision to make these into book covers. So, for example, you're looking at a cover for The Shining by Stanley Kubrick versus The Shining by Stephen King. Stephen King may not love that. So you stay away from things like that where, it was a book, became a movie. So we had to take a pass through it from that perspective as well. And some of them were like based on an idea from a book. So you just kind of had to look even closely at that. Like There Will Be Blood,
Yeah.
based on an existing work. So it was really more the process of those two rules, like anything kind of licensed character or anything that was originally a book, we kind of had to stay away from.
Got it. And then my other question, you mentioned sort of with the Matrix, for example, when you sort of hit your flow state and everything was just lining up and it was working out really, really well. The flip side of that, were there ever times where maybe you had a style that you really wanted to use, like you talked about the sort of pulp novel style, or you talked about psychedelic style or whatever, and as you sort of got into things, you realized it was sort of putting a square peg in a round hole, that you couldn't really make it work with a concept, or there was something that was discordant about it and you had to sort of punt and maybe either go with a different movie or go with a different style or whatever as you were executing?
Yeah, there's a lot of that happened quite a bit actually, where I would go into something with a particular style in mind, realize that I was either stuck, and you know how it is, sometimes when you're stuck it's just easier to do a 180 and try a different direction, and sometimes that can jar something loose, maybe even with your original direction. That was funny was, I wonder if this is still on Twitter somewhere or X or whatever it is now, but there was the movie Drive. I had the idea to do sort of this road, almost like the Streets of LA road map that kind of looked like a scorpion. And my sketch was really good. And then as I went and executed it in a more rigid kind of vector style, I simplified it in a way that once I created it, it looked like a penis.
Wait, is that bad?
Yeah.
Maybe not. From your perspective. In this case, it was not the original artist's intent,
It wasn't
so
where you
it
were
was
going
bad
with it,
for
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I remember somebody's like, okay. Like I started looking at the comments and I was like, all right, okay, what's happening
They're
here?
like, it's a
I'm like,
scorpion,
oh
get it?
yeah,
And
that
they're
really
like,
does. That really does look like a penis. So that was on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
And then that one went. I ended up doing kind of this very neon sign looking version of the actual scorpion that's on his jacket. That's also the danger of kind of working in the vacuum of your own little bubble where it looks like something to you and then you put it out there and
Pin it up for the crit.
yeah.
yeah, and then
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah, that
And
is
somebody's
not what
like,
I had
oh,
in mind.
yes.
Yeah, so
The
but from a
Rorschach
style
test of the
perspective,
scorpion dick. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'll have to send you guys the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, he's gonna send us some scorpion.
It doesn't
dick,
look
Todd.
that much like it. It's not,
Oh.
it's not that bad.
I mean,
but-
I was thinking, but that could be like some kind of ancient potion that could have us live for 200 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And Elliot,
Maybe.
don't act like you don't get dick pics all the time through emails.
I don't get many scorpion dick pics.
Oh, okay, there you go.
No,
Yeah.
I don't even.
That's special.
Hey, I got a question. So, Matt, if you were to do a cover for your own life story, what would the title be? And what would be some of the visual elements that you might pull into that?
Wow.
Man.
That
Jeez,
is.
Todd.
I was not ready for the depth of that question right there. That is deep.
That's what happens when Todd's been drinking.
He has been drinking. Yeah. We're gonna really after the scorpion dick. business,
Yeah,
we're
we're
in a real weird
shifting
area
gears.
I know.
Yeah,
I was trying
we
to
are.
bring.
Yeah.
I was trying to bring some class to it.
now. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think for me, I have always really connected to underdog stories like that.
Yeah.
The first movie I ever remember like really loving, we're going from scorpion dicks to very touching emotional things here. The first movie I ever remember really loving was The Karate Kid.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know, that was like a really special movie to me. And I think I had lost my father when I was young. I had moved to a new city when I was young. And I saw that movie kind of in the midst of all that. And so, I don't know. There's something about that I find really touching, and just, that's something I really connect to, like in movies is underdog stories. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do. That's why there's so many of them out there. But if you want to get me to cry in the movie theater, that's the way to do it. Put an underdog story up there. Yeah. So maybe it's, I don't know. I'll have to think more about that one.
I think the title of the book should be Scorpion Dick.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Scorpion Dick and underdog story.
well, you can
Colon.
you can
colon.
buy
An underdog story.
you can buy
Absolutely.
the URL from me because I've just gotten it. So
Yeah.
Oh man, cyber
luck.
squatting.
You got the fast fingers. I was on the site too, darn it.
well, hey, just touching on something, Matt. So you grew up in Charlotte, right?
Well, I grew up, I was born in Florida, but grew up in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
and then moved to Charlotte for college. Yeah.
So one of the things, I was born in North Carolina and I grew up in North Carolina, and they've tried to get rid of me, but nonetheless, I'm here. One of the things I've always felt, and I've talked to other creatives that in their careers they've achieved a certain amount of success, but because of where we are, we sort of feel like we have to prove a little bit more. I went out hunting for jobs in New York and in LA, and that was all great, and I'm glad that I didn't move at this point. But
Yeah.
I always felt like being here, and particularly in the time that all of us have sort of grown up in the industry, is we can be exposed to so many more things. You don't have to be in New York to see what Milton Glaser was doing or whomever. So I always felt like we had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder that we had to prove something.
Yeah. I mean, I think my take on that is that I take a certain amount of pride in, if you live in an area and people often question the sort of the design credentials of that area, I think there's something to me feels good about staying and raising the profile of that area. and we are in an era where I think you can kind of live wherever you want.
Yeah.
And so for me, I do take a certain amount of pride when I get on the client call and they hear I'm on the East Coast and like, oh, are you in New York? And I'm like, no, I'm in Charlotte, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are like, oh, where's that? Or some people are like, yeah, I've been there. It's really nice. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have a little bit of a kind of screw you kind of attitude about it.
Yeah.
Like, we've got folks here too. And if everybody that's any good leaves and goes to a big city, then, this area, North Carolina, wherever, the profile's never going to raise. So, yeah, I take a little bit of a pride in doing good work where I want to live in the state that I call home. So I think that's kind of how I feel about it, is like, maybe it's that underdog thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I love being in a place where nobody expects that there's a lot going on, and then they find out that there's talent here, or that I'm, making a good living or doing
I'm
something
with you.
interesting here. Like, I like that. I really like
Yeah.
the feel of that. Creating something from a place that nobody expects, I think is something that's really exciting to me, versus just jumping into one of the larger markets. And because there's a lot of talent here, there's a lot going on here, and I think it's so, I think as a state, it's a wonderful place to live, and that's important too.
As an outsider, I mean, I moved here by choice.
Yeah.
And one thing I miss.
Not my choice.
Yeah, it wasn't Todd's. Well, I heard Todd was looking to leave, and so I was sliding in to take his slot, and then the wheels fell off his car, and he made it to the edge of town. I miss the print regional annual, because I think that was really just a very wonderful way to celebrate design. This is pre-internet or baby internet. It was really interesting to see how different markets and different areas of the country, like San Francisco, had a very different look than Chicago or than New York or Austin or Miami or wherever.
Absolutely.
Like, I think in some ways maybe things have gotten a little bit more homogenized as a result
I would agree
of
with that.
Everybody living in the same Instagram feed or whatever.
Yep.
But the other thing that I think the South has, certainly North Carolina has, is it's just so story centric. There are just a lot of characters running around here, and a lot of very interesting narrative qualities to our part of the world. And I think that, of course, just due to osmosis, seeps into the design work too.
Yeah.
So I think that localized sort of sensibility carries over and actually adds value, doesn't detract from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that callback to print. I used to love those as well. Just, Minneapolis had its own look for sure. And we had a very, I don't know, kind of blue collar, a little bit of blue collar industrial kind of feel. I love that.
I always felt like our area, maybe this is a southern thing in general, but particularly in North Carolina, there was a lot of emphasis put on the craft of, I mean, just, my grandmother made quilts, other people made dulcimers and things. And, so that has to come through, is that love of getting your hands dirty and making something with it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, I've had to talk about this project a decent amount, and I feel like I'm a pretty instinctive designer. I don't always necessarily think that hard about process so a lot of times I'm backtracking and going, well, why did I do that? Or
right.
So I think a lot of this project for me is sort of recovering the tactile in the digital world that we live in. So I'm creating these kind of fake artifacts.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that people go like, oh, this looks real. Like, I would love to have this on my shelf, because that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of creating these objects that don't exist.
You know what's next, don't you?
What's that?
Journals.
Oh, yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
I'm only going to ask for 50%.
Oh, you're lucky, only 50%.
I have a witness for my idea. Yeah,
absolutely.
So Todd's going to take 25 of my 50%, which is why I have to ask for 50.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you could do journals, you could do sketchbooks. I think of Field Notes and what they've been able to do. Field Notes did it. They've done a number of great riffs, but one of the riffs they did that I really like, I have them squirreled away in a drawer, is they did some Blue Note covers, some jazz album covers. And so what made me think about it was like vinyl collecting and everything like that. And of course, they've done collaborations with folks like Hatch with their letterpress posters. So it's this rediscovery of the tangible and adding value to the different form factors of the different ways these designs can be delivered, and make them utilitarian beyond their initial reason for being, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of how I approach coming up as a print designer, coming up as somebody that loves to design for screen print posters, those kind of things, I often approach my illustration work as if it's printed. Like, it doesn't need to be.
Right.
But I think about it, how many colors is this quote unquote printed in? And so that's just how I approach most of my illustration work. I approach it as if I would have to separate it and screen print it, even though 99% of it never happens.
And that adds the authenticity to the project.
Yeah, and it adds those limitations that you talked about earlier that allows you to focus more on the idea and the craft, because it's not exploding with...
Yeah, that's why I love this era of cover design that I tend to gravitate towards, is this stuff where, you know, it's a lot of the penguin stuff, it's a lot of the limited palette. Reproduction wasn't amazing. It's a little gritty, it's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, get them out the door.
Yeah. So I love that aspect of it, because I don't know, it doesn't feel so precious. And the idea, something about the idea being kind of gritty and real is, I love that. You know, I'd say the more I've done this particular book project, more of that has seeped into my actual client work. Yeah. It's become more that way for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great testimony for why you work on personal projects. Is that idea of discovery, that idea of osmosis. You never know it's going to influence something else, and just almost unknowingly it starts to creep into your, you know, your legit work, your paid work.
It's like a little jungle gym for your brain to keep over here. You know what I mean? It's like I can just go play, I can go swing around, I can go figure out what I can do, what I can't do, what I want to get better at. And absolutely, that's why I've always kept something going, because that's so important to me on a lot of levels.
Yeah, same. Keeps it exciting.
That's the name of my book. It just hit me. Jungle Gym for your brain.
I love that.
And you'll be a character named Jungle Jim in the book.
Yeah. Can you illustrate it in the Dick and Jane style with you know, the cat? I love that. I love all that stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. Tell you what, let's take a quick break to refresh our drinks, and then we'll jump back in with Matt.
See you in a minute, everyone. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters.
Think Ghostbusters.
Iconic images.
Think Bigfoot.
Punk music.
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons.
The Pink Panther.
And failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase "Two Designers Walk Into a Bar."
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
So, Jungle Jim makes me think of jungle cocktails.
I like the way you think.
What's your favorite cocktail, Matt? If we had to talk to the bartender to shake something up for you, could be tiki tropical, could be something that's close to antifreeze,
mid-century Manhattan.
I'm a Moscow Mule man all the way, in a well-weathered copper mug, one that looks like they've been using it for years. I love a good Moscow Mule. The ginger and the lime, it just, I don't know, that just does it for me. Simple but effective.
I can buy that.
Do you have like a local bar of choice you go to that you want to call out?
I don't think that I do. Although, I gotta say, the story of the Thirsty Beaver down on Central Avenue, right? Do you know this?
I know the name, but I don't know the story.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's down in this Plaza Midwood area of Charlotte. And that area, as with a lot of Charlotte, has been homogenized, large condos and apartments that have come into these kind of older, more historic spaces that they're losing all their character. So we had like one of the first Dairy Queens, which is now, unfortunately, I begrudgingly have to say it's a great place that came in there, but it was an old Dairy Queen where everybody would walk up, people from all walks of life, all different kind of strata. Anyway, right on that stretch of Central Avenue, there's this little shoebox bar with a horribly painted beaver on the side called the Thirsty Beaver. I say horribly in the most complimentary way possible.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So they came in to build these big condos thinking that everyone would sell, and the Thirsty Beaver did not sell.
Yeah, they said, screw you.
And so there's these probably 5-6 story imposing wall of condos that have to go shoot back. And the Thirsty Beaver sits in the midst of this
I love it.
Giant kind of ugly thing. There was actually, when the Rolling Stones played here a couple years ago, there was a photo of Mick Jagger just standing out in front of the Thirsty Beaver.
And no one knew who he was.
No one knew who he was.
Out by himself, having a drink. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah,
so I've never drank there, but sticking with our theme of underdogs, that's got to be my favorite. That's got to be my favorite.
All right. It's official. Todd and I are going to roll into town so you can buy us drinks at the Thirsty Beaver.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
We'll have Moscow mules.
And we'll see if anyone.
Let's do it.
Elliot, we'll see if anyone recognizes us. We'll put a cap on like Mick did and see.
They'll say, "Aren't you Mick Jagger?"
Exactly.
You know what? I bet you no one will recognize us.
No, I just have moves like Jagger.
I know. That's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Here's another one. Speed round, Matt. What's your favorite cartoon character?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Besides Underdog, you've already named
besides Underdog.
Yes. Oh, dang it.
And his assistant Scorpion Penis.
Favorite cartoon character. There was a super weird show on about maybe 8 or 10 years ago when my kids were younger, and we were watching. They weren't watching the really young stuff, but kind of the middle of the road stuff. Back when they got into like SpongeBob and that stuff, the cartoon was called Flapjack. I don't know if you remember Flapjack.
I remember the name, but I don't remember much about it. My kid is a little bit older, I think, than yours, and so like we dodged the Flapjack bullet.
Flapjack was great. It was this very bizarre. He lived in this little harbor town, and his buddy was this little sailor boy named Flapjack with this really high voice, and he hung out with this old grizzled sailor named Captain Knuckles. And they would drink syrup and go to the candy bar, which was all a thinly veiled metaphor for like alcoholism.
Yeah, sure.
So, Captain Knuckles was coming home at night, sipping on, maple syrup and just drunk.
Gin and syrup.
Yeah, they both lived in a whale called Bubby the whale. So I think it's like I grew up on like weird. I just always gravitated kind of towards the strange stuff when I was, So I'd say deep cut, but I have to go Flapjack on that.
Yeah, good one.
Wow. You're reminding me of a show that I would watch with my son when he was little, which I absolutely loved, which was Yo Gabba Gabba.
Yes.
See, that's my sensibility right there. Yeah, Yo Gabba Gabba.
Yeah. I was like, what is happening with this? This is the best show ever. And then, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, aren't those the Aquabats?
Yeah.
And then someone's like, yeah, they're the ones who made the show. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And then Jack Black showed up on one on the motorcycle.
Biz Markie was on it.
Mark Mothersbaugh had a regular appearance.
Drawing on there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like totally pop culture crazy.
It was like Pee Wee's Playhouse and for sort of a different age, which...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How great was Pee Wee's Playhouse?
Oh, that was, absolutely amazing. Like, yeah.
Yeah, there's your connection to the Matrix, right? Lawrence Fishburne is the...
Oh, yeah.
Cowboy Curtis.
Right? Cowboy Curtis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
All right, well, let's turn the tables. Do you have any questions you want to ask us besides when is this damn interview going to be over?
I guess I would ask you guys, like, I'm always interested to hear, I'm assuming you've had some time to look at, different, like, what are your favorites, some of your favorites from the book, and maybe why?
Gosh, that's a great question. I also really like the Ghostbusters. You had brought up Ghostbusters. And what I liked about that is the fact that everything the visual that comes up with Ghostbusters, and Guilty as Charged, we actually talked about this in an early episode, was the Ghostbusters logo. And you just think of circle slash, and it's always, Ghostbusters. And I really liked your execution focusing on the people, but it was kind of like mysterious and a little bit distant for the viewer.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, you kind of like what we were talking about with The Matrix, you had the benefit of the payoff in that, like, 3 generations of people, plus know the arc of the first Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
So they know it's 4 people, they know the packs and the basic story and everything like that. So I really liked that you didn't focus on the ghost, that you focused on the team and the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Because that's really what makes that movie work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I read that Bill Murray, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if I remember my history correctly, Bill Murray, he actually wanted Paramount, I think it was Paramount or Columbia or whoever did, I think it was Paramount, it was the studio, he wanted them to do like a remake of a movie called The Razor's Edge.
Oh.
It was Columbia.
Wow.
It was Columbia. And they basically said, like, well, if you do this movie for us, we will fund this movie for you.
Yeah.
So he sort of phoned in, or like completely blew off his Pete Venkman role.
Oh, that's funny.
Because he was like, whatever. And he was like going through it just to sort of do
Right.
it. And so it was very lighthearted and kind of goofy because he wasn't taking it seriously. And then that movie was like a tremendous success.
Yeah.
And then The Razor's Edge, the redo, completely and utterly bombed.
Oh, wow. That's hilarious.
So he made his money, hopefully, on the movie that he didn't take seriously.
Yeah.
Because
That
seriously.
phoned in kind of approach very much that
totally
character.
worked for the character.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my son one year, he watched that movie when really little, because it's one of my favorite movies too. And I remember saying, hey, if you could be one of the Ghostbusters, which one would you be? And he's like, oh, I want to be Venkman. Like, he immediately zeroed in on, like, that's the
awesome.
guy.
Yeah. The guy that doesn't care is the cool guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can take it or leave it.
Yeah. Yep.
For me, I'm really attracted to the ones that are really the simplest and kind of had this conceptual story that they're telling, often with one thing being 2 things. And if you know the movie, you can kind of get it. It doesn't stop it from being a great cover.
Yeah.
And like I said, the earlier ones I remember getting turned on to this series were like Pulp Fiction and Mad Max, but I love the Speed one.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, I think, a newer one. And another one that fits in that same category of sort of simple, bold, conceptual is the School of Rock cover.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's, again, I mean, it's hard not to get that when you look at it, but it's so simple and pure and beautiful, and has the attitude that needs to go with it as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
All right, I'm going back now, and I'm looking through.
Oh, and the Joker. I love the Joker.
Yeah,
too.
I'm looking through all these because I have to think about. Usual Suspects is great. Just the sort of Kaiser Soze hand.
Yeah.
The invisible hand guiding all their behaviors. I would say another one. Where did it go? Braveheart. I feel you nailed Brave. Like, I have picked up and read that book. Like, when I was in elementary school and middle school, I read that book. Yeah, that was, Beowulf, or that was Canterbury Tales, or some Shakespeare play, or whatever. That's really great. And then, Back to the Future, obviously. Yeah. It's hard to argue with that one.
Yeah.
The Tom Hanks one is really good too. Big. Like, that's so smart, so simple, but it's great. Color. Like we talked about, a lot of restrictive colors for these. I mean, boy, how do you... Some of them, it makes, you even have 2 color here. And that makes a lot of sense, I think, because it works. Like, so for example, like Casino Royale, obviously, it's the playing cards.
Yeah.
So black and red, right? But with some of the other ones, I mean, you could really have a field day with some of these visuals. So it's like, how do you distill it down? So, like, I love, for example, Barton Fink, because it's all, that's what everybody remembers, is everything on fire, right? And so it's like so great that I mean, everything just works with these. You know, the typography works, the colors work, the composition works. So yeah, I mean, kudos.
Well, thanks.
Kudos to you for all of the. I mean, yeah, it's really amazing.
I don't know if you noticed in the Barton Fink one, his hair is made up of words from his writing. So a lot of it's fun, like you know, do little grabs of things and integrate them, and you hope people see them, but if they don't, it's okay. I don't know. I really like that kind of second level of discovery kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's very sort of, again, classic design, like very Seymour Quast, Milton Glaser, like all of the design titans, right? It's the quick read, and then it's rewarding the person who crosses the street to look at the details of the poster or picks up the book or whatever.
Awesome. Well, I love.
You've convinced me. I'm going to buy the book. I mean, I was sitting on the fence till now because little known fact, Todd and I can't read.
So we can look at pictures.
That's good.
Yeah, we just look at pictures. I mean, the fact that these are, very visually driven, that was really the tipping point for us.
I have gotten a couple of bad reviews on the book where people are like, "It's a lot of pictures, not a lot of writing." I'm like, I don't know what you thought you were getting, but okay.
Yeah. This Monet guy, I mean, he's a pretty good painter, but I mean, I don't know there's no story here.
I guess I should have titled it "Good Book Covers," as good movies as good old book covers. Maybe that should have been more specific.
Good book covers with no story connecting them.
Yeah,
that is pretty amazing, though. I love that. Yeah, when are you going to novelize this? When are you going to hire a copywriter to novelize your book?
It's just this is becoming that snake that just eats its tail, right?
Yeah,
it's just
the scorpion that eats its.
Yeah, I was going to say that's your follow-up book is Scorpion Penis.
Oh man, I will send you that visual.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Can't show it to anyone.
No.
I think it's mostly off the internet.
Yeah,
so.
Oh well, we'll put it right back on there.
Nice.
Oh man.
Well, Matt, this has been a real treat. Thank you for taking the time to.
I loved it.
Talk to us and share with us.
Absolutely, it's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed talking about it with some fellow designers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Same here.
We'll come meet you at the Thirsty Beaver.
Let's do it.
And we heard you have an open tab, or we can charge it to Nick either way.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, all the free pub I just gave them. I mean, they.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness. Yeah, they at least owe you one round.
True.
Well, we will talk again very soon, I'm sure. And best of luck with this as you continue. And I'll be excited to get my 50% from all the journal and sketchbook sales.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Coasters.
Absolutely.
You can make coasters.
Contract is in the mail, I promise.
Oh, perfect. I love
Thanks,
it.
Matt.
All right. Thanks so much, Matt.
Appreciate it.
All right. You bet.